Auf Wiedersehen.
This is the worst.
Mota Zitabanakis. Welcome into the Worst Fantasy Show. I am your host with the least, Jack Lucenay, here on a Sunday morning ahead of the game in Munich, Germany for the NFL. I already forgot the teams that are playing this morning. My mind, not at 100%. I had this weird, thunderclap headache that hit me at 5 a.m. So I literally am just getting back up awake now. The Giants in Carolina, so it's a game we can definitely miss this morning. Shout out to Raw Boy. Let's go Tyrone Tracy Jr. Yeah, that's the only really good matchup that you're looking for this morning, and you're hoping Malik Neighbors does some stuff. But yes, we are here Sunday morning to answer some last minute questions. I'm actually in the process of also buying a PlayStation 2 right now. So I'm just talking to this guy right now, and then I'm going to be jumping over to Fantasy Advice Net. No, Jesus, I'll never get the new name right. Fantasy Sports Advice.networks. FantasySportsAdvice.network. If you guys aren't familiar, they basically run a social media for fantasy football. So if you've been over on Twitter getting bombarded with political posts and ads and all that kind of bullshit, then this is the place for you. You can go and get your social media needs without having to deal with all that outside crap. Sorry, guys, just 1 second. All right. Yeah, he had a rare game too, and I was like, shit. But he got rid of it. Need a flex. Our first question of the day from Raw Boy. Tracy, Monty, or Collins? Yeah, Nico Collins is back. First game back. Fuck it. I'm going with Tyrone Tracy. Honestly, as good as David Montgomery is, his ceiling is definitely capped by Jahmyr Gibbs, and the Texans defense is decent. Nico Collins, his first game back, he could definitely have a great game, but I want to be in on the second game back. Tyrone Tracy is just a smash play. Like, Carolina is the number one team giving up fantasy points to the running back position, and Tyrone Tracy's kind of got a lock on that starting job right now. So I think I'm playing him as like a high upside RB2. And yeah, make sure to grab Midnight Club Dub Edition. Yo, that game is so sick. Unfortunately, that's not one of the games. Actually, the game that I was looking at that he had. So again, it's just like, I'm not a gamer that plays new games. I'm very much into old games. And so I was just looking at some of the games he's got. I've already got a bunch of these, like Unreal Tournament and Twisted Metal Black. Scarface. I literally just got Scarface yesterday, so this is why I'm buying the place. This guy's got a PlayStation Slim. You can actually see it right behind me there, the old fat one. But this one's a piece of shit, and it doesn't want to run Scarface properly. So I'm literally buying a fucking new one today just so I can play Scarface. But yeah, he had Simpsons Hit and Run, and I've been looking for that one for my daughter because that's the one that was like it was open world is what it was, where it was like an RPG style almost with the Simpsons, but it was like had open world aspects to it, so it's hard to find. But yeah, I was like, fuck, if he could have got me that would have been sweet. But yeah, a lot of these other games I already have. But yeah, Midnight Club, that's got to be on the list. You know what I was looking for yesterday too, and I couldn't find it, was Need for Speed Underground 2 and NFS U2. They had one and they had Most Wanted, and I was like, nah, it has to be Underground 2. Yeah, hit and run on GameCube. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, man. Like old games, that's where it's at. I'm very much a collector of old games, and one of the things that drives me fucking crazy nowadays is this idea of everything sold as digital copy. Bro, I'm a physical copy guy for life. Fuck you talking about? Even on Steam, it's like if you purchase this game, you're not really purchasing this game. Like, fuck out of here. All right, let's answer some football questions. Jawan Jennings or Jordan Addison in full PPR. I would go with Jawan Jennings. I think it is a really good matchup for Addison. I think the fact that Brandon Ayuk is out for the year, you have a clear path to being kind of that wide receiver 2 behind Kittle and Debo. Debo is probable, so there's maybe a little bit less upside for Jennings. But the connection with Purdy, I feel like, is a safer floor. So I think by a smidge, I like Jennings. I do think if you're playing Burrow Chase, this is going to be a big running theme today. If you played Burrow Chase, if you played Lamar, Mark Andrews stack, go for the ceiling, which in this case I think would be Jordan Addison. And then Rawl asked thoughts on keeping Taysom in the tight end spot rest of season. No, not rest of season. He's a spot start. He's a good start today. He's a spot start in situations where, I mean, again, it's like, I guess you could, in theory, you could keep him in rest of season, but you have to know that there's a viability and even a probability that he's going to get like 5 fantasy points. And if he doesn't get like the weird rushing touchdown and work, and then obviously we'll have some explosive games. So it really depends on like who are your other tight ends. You know, I still would treat it as a matchup based option. If I have, if I have K Dotton, for example, I'm playing K Dotton above Taysom. I'm playing Evan Ingram today in the matchup above Taysom. I think Travis Kelce has come along really as of late. I would still play him above Taysom Hill. So, it really is, I think, more of a second tier play. And I would treat it still as a spot start as opposed to I'm just going to leave this guy in my lineup for the rest of the season and not think about it. Frizzle, what's up, my man? Chris Rodriguez Jr. worth a pickup in 14-man? In 14-man, yes. Historically, he doesn't do a lot, though. He's reminiscent of not Samaje Perine. Who's that other running back that the Commanders had? He's just a big chunky boy that just runs, doesn't really do much else. I do like Rodriguez. I have him in my 16-team dynasty league, but he's very one note is the problem. He's not a dynamic running back by any means. This is very much a 3 yards in a cloud of dust kind of guy. However, again, like I said, historically, he sees touches when everybody else in the backfield is like dead. So, yeah, in deep enough leagues, is he worth holding on to? Absolutely. I mean, any running back is worth holding on to. I just feel like Jeremy McNichols generally is like, I think I would rather have McNichols because you're hoping kind of for an explosive play. And then you look at the scheduling coming up, like, and just, again, the historicity of, like, last year. You look at last year. I mean, he has always kind of average. He's a good, strong running back, but he's just, in his entire career, he has 2 receptions, So it's like he is not a pass-catching running back by any means. Big, thick boy. Good at running the football, but and then I guess the question would be Chris Rodriguez, Trey Benson, or estimate. Yeah, Benson by a mile. Trey Benson is already actively involved in that backfield, even though it's kind of a three-headed monster. And you're looking at James Conner, Trey Benson, and Amari DiMercato are all actively involved right now. But the fact that Benson is, again, actively involved and kind of has been all year, has the higher draft capital, more talent. God forbid anything happens to James Conner. I think Benson and DiMercato would both be flex plays in that situation, but I would prioritize Trey Benson. So I definitely, if you're talking about who am I stashing here as a handcuff, it's Trey Benson. Let's get some start sit questions from the Fantasy Advice Network. Went up. Here we go. This is a perfect example. Went up against Chase. Who's the best option to have a big game in my flex? Kareem Hunt, George Pickens, or Jalen Waddle? I'm torn. I actually think my gut is George Pickens because that's what he does is big play stuff. But no, it's Kareem Hunt. He's just been so consistent since the Chiefs have re-signed him and started leaning on him as the primary running back. Like that is both, I think, the floor and the ceiling play. Because even though Denver is a good defense, it's like Kareem Hunt's getting 20 touches. That's guaranteed. If he plays, he's getting 20 carries. He's probably getting a touchdown. So do you think George Pickens is going for 20 plus fantasy points against the Washington Commanders defense? I personally don't. So I'm going with Kareem Hunt there. Even though technically it's like you're looking for a ceiling, I think he is both the floor and the ceiling in that situation. Ooh. Oh, that's the other thing. So people are anticipating that Tyreek Hill is potentially going to miss, and that is on a Monday. I am a Tyreek Hill dynasty manager, so I can tell you that all season this guy has consistently missed practices, been questionable, been on the injury report, and yet has still played. It's been myopic. It hasn't been productive. Even the games with Tua haven't been that great, but I think you still have to play Tyreek if he's active. But this question is asking, assuming that Tyreek was inactive, would you rather start Jalen Waddle or Austin Eckler knowing that Brian Robinson is inactive? Brian Robinson already being out, to me, and the fact that they play on Sunday, even though it's a tougher matchup, I'm going with Austin Eckler because I'm taking the guaranteed points. And I also don't think necessarily that it's a plus for Jalen Waddle if Tyreek Hill is inactive because, yes, he'll probably see those extra targets, but they haven't been great. Tyreek Hill hasn't been able to do anything with it all year. So I think I would start but I also have a feeling that Tyreek Hill will be active and will take away targets. They just may not be viable for fantasy production. So I side with Austin Eckler in that situation, especially because then I don't have to wait till Monday to find out. Oof, here's the tough one. Tony Pollard or Chuba Hubbard? So Jonathan Brooks is officially active, and the big question is how much work is the Carolina Panthers going to give him? I'm assuming it's going to be not that much. I would assume that he would take on the same role that sort of Miles Sanders has been filling, and that Chuba Hubbard would still be the primary. I still lean Tony Pollard, even though it's Will Levis playing today, which I hate. I think Pollard is like the central focus of his entire offense, whereas, Chuba Hubbard has been extremely good. This presents as kind of a scary matchup, I think, going across the pond to Germany. Giants defense, tougher than they look on paper. I still think Chuba can get things done, but I actually like the matchup for Pollard slightly better because I think they're going to have to dump off to try and avoid that pass rush for the Chargers. So, yeah, I'm going Tony Pollard. Frizzle asking, if your wide receivers are Olave, Smith, Zay, Leggett, and Pop, yeah, I would just pray. Is there a need to pick up Parker Washington, or should I pick up Trey Benson? My running backs are Mixon, Bijan, Cam Akers. Yeah, I would pick up Trey Benson. I mean, I think Olave is potentially out for the season. You need to prepare yourself for that. He's already had 2 concussions this year, and they're really treating that a lot more serious in the NFL these days. I don't know that he comes back again this year. I might be wrong about that, but with the record and everything going on with the team, I wouldn't be shocked if Olave just misses the rest of the season. I'm assuming that's Devonta Smith and Zay Flowers. That's obviously the core of your wide receivers. Xavier Legette is very much a dart throw, and then Pop Douglas. Like, I wouldn't even be married to those 2 wide receivers. If they start to fall off for any reason, I'd be willing to cut bait and pick up other guys. So I'm not saying you should do that now, and I would not drop either of them for Parker Washington, but just if somebody comes up and you're like, oh shit, someone dropped a wide receiver that I really need. Like, I saw Michael Pittman get dropped in a league, and I'm like, I get that he's been underperforming, but keep an eye on frustrated fantasy managers this time of year. This is the time of year where it's like in shallow enough leagues, you're going to see random moves happening like DJ Moore is a perfect example of a guy that's going to get dropped. Keenan Allen. And the Bears schedule for the rest of the season is amazing. So these are guys that I would still be stashing. I might not be starting them right now if I can help it, but yeah, I mean, it's I personally would still just stick with what you got. Hey, what's up, Jerry? What's going on? And then Frizz asked, I have Ferg and Otten. Should I try and get rid of Otten for better wide receiver? No, we've been down this path before, Frizz. You asked me this before. You're going to have to pry Cade Otten from my cold, dead hands, because I will trade pair Ferguson and Pop Douglas, or Ferguson and, I think for Ferguson and Devonta Smith, you could maybe get an upgrade too. So, I would explore options of Ferguson paired with something to go get something else. And then also give me an extra waiver spot, a little bit of flexibility. I'm not getting rid of Cade Otten to just, move sideways and get a wide receiver. Cade Otten right now basically is a wide receiver one, but it's such an advantage because it's at the tight end spot. And Jerry asks, would you start Monty over Brees or Mixon? No. As much as I love David Montgomery, and even if it turns out to be the wrong answer, it's one of those wrong answers you can't help it. Like, no, I'm not going to start David Montgomery, who is very much an RB2 on his own team, as good as he is. Jahmyr Gibbs obviously caps his upside. And, Joe Mixon is one of the, I think he's top 3 fantasy running back this year. He's right there behind Saquon and Derrick Henry, as far as I know. If not, he's in the top 10 for sure. So Joe Mixon is in for me for sure. And then Breece Hall. I know Breece Hall has been pretty disappointing, and I could see myself debating if I want to start David Montgomery or Breece Hall. And a plus matchup against the Cardinals, even though it's on the road, that's where I'm sticking with Breece Hall in this matchup. Tyrone Tracy or Otten in the flex. Woo! That's sexy. Wow. I love Cade Otten, and I would flex him. He is very flex worthy. I do think Tyrone Tracy is still the play here. Again, I'm going to go back to the matchup. The Carolina Panthers are giving up the most fantasy points to the running back this year. They are number 1 to stream against for fantasy running backs. So I'm going to go with Tyrone Tracy. I think his shot to get 100 scrimmage yards and a touchdown, I would place it at above 50% right now, which is kind of crazy to think about. But again, you look at the matchup, the way that the team leans on them, the fact that they've essentially relegated Devin Singletary, who is a competent NFL running back, to a backup role. says a lot, I think, about Tyrone Tracy, who came out and tweeted himself that this is only his second year even playing the position at all. Because again, you got to remember, this guy was a converted wide receiver in college. So I'm sticking with Tyrone Tracy. Maybe it ends up being the wrong answer, and if he does have a disappointing day, I just don't see. I don't see it. I really think that I think Tyrone Tracy is the play here. But I love Kate Otten, so that was a tough one. Trade Monty for Josh Jacobs, yes. Yeah. I've actually, someone asked me this the other day in my DMs. A guy that's been kind of asking me for advice all year. And he's undefeated. He's trying to keep that streak going. And he's asking me a lot of trade questions because it's that time of year, right? And I told him, I'm like, look, if you're compounding good players into great players, that's fine. As much as I love David Montgomery, again, upside is capped by the fact that he's got an extremely talented and electric running back on his own team that he has to share with in Jahmyr Gibbs. And Josh Jacobs doesn't really have that problem. Emmanuel Wilson has actually been really great. If you need like a super deep stash and a guy to maybe throw in to flex, Emmanuel Wilson in like 14 team plus leagues, he's worth holding. But I would rather have Josh Jacobs. It's also a question of, you look at the schedule going the rest of the way, Josh Jacobs has actually a better schedule than Montgomery. So that's another factor. Tracy going for 203 TD. Yeah, that would be nice. I am probably the most overweight person on Tyrone Tracy, like in all of like fantasy football. I'm joking a little bit, but like my best ball shares, I have over 50% Tyrone Tracy. I was the Tyrone Tracy guy before it was cool. Hit that like button, y'all. Yeah, thank you, Jerry. I always forget to do some of the business keeping stuff of like and subscribe to the channel. I'm fucking algorithm bullshit. T-Law maybe out for the season. Yes. I think he actually probably does miss the rest of the season. They're not going anywhere. Why would he risk re-injuring himself? I do think Mac Jones is a competent quarterback. I think he kind of did dirty in New England, and I think he's going to surprise some people. So I would not be dumping your Jaguar shares just yet. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be just fine. I think Evan Ingram can be just fine. I even think Travis Etienne and the running back room is not dead. So as much as this is a blow for the team and the future of the Jaguars, because obviously Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be your franchise quarterback for the remainder of this fantasy season. Again, Mac Jones can get you to 80% of what T-Law was already doing, I think. And then Frizz asked, would I rather keep Devonta Smith or Zay Flowers rest of the season? That's a tough one. I think my gut says Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers to me has emerged as the 1A in the offense in terms of the receiving game. I think it is very much he's 1A, Mark Andrews is 1B. The only concern is I think the similarities between Zay Flowers and Deontay Johnson, and if Deontay Johnson is able to basically make his way onto the field by the time that you're in your fantasy championship. You also have the late bye to deal with the Ravens, week 14. So obviously nobody beats the bye week. You always get 0 points on a bye week. So you're going to have him week 15, 16, 17 and hope that by then Deontay Johnson hasn't integrated himself into the offense so much that he's taking work away from Zay Flowers. However, the same argument could also be made that if you have Deontay Johnson on one side and Zay Flowers on the other and Mark Andrews in the middle, who in the hell are you going to cover on this offense? And Zay Flowers could still be extremely viable. I look at Lamar as a MVP quarterback. I think is a very underrated passer of the football and always has been. So, and I think he's better than Jalen Hurts, not just as a runner, but as a passer. So if I'm putting my chips in on one of these wide receivers, I actually think it would be Zay Flowers because Devonta Smith, obviously, he's fantastic, but he's still always going to have A.J. Brown and Dallas Goedert and Saquon Barkley. And there's going to be games where he is the guy, and then there's going to be games where they don't need him. And that's just the nature of the beast. Again, it's incremental. I do think that it is Zay Flowers just by a smidge for me. All right, we'll do a couple more minutes of questions. Like I said, I wasn't even sure if I was going to make it to this show. I don't know what the hell happened this morning. It was weird. It was like just going through my normal routine, and then all of a sudden I got this like awful thunderclap migraine. I swear to God, took me like off my feet. I had to get like a heating pad. I laid down with it for a couple hours. I like passed out. It was the kind of headache that you go on Google after to like look up the symptoms to be like, should I go to the hospital and shit? Like, but it's like, no, if it goes away. And I will admit that I did not sleep well. I woke up too early, didn't eat properly, and then I smoked a couple bong bowls. And I think it was like the third one just fucking, I don't know, didn't hit me. I made me cough bad, and just like I said, sudden onset migraine just took me right out all of this morning. So, hey kids, don't over smoke weed. Okay. Ooh, here's a good question. DeAndre Swift rest of season or Kareem Hunt? Because you have to assume that Pacheco is coming back at some point. But I don't know if Pacheco is going to be ready for this regular season. And I also don't know that they would rush him back when they're succeeding with Kareem Hunt. Like, what would be the reason? I'm just pulling up my Scott Fishbowl team because I know I have Isaiah Pacheco. It'll be easy for me to check this right here. Oh, yeah, fuck off. Yeah, there's no way. I would stick with Kareem Hunt, and I'm just reading the news here, so this is, again, I think sometimes people have weird expectations of NFL players. Isaiah Pacheco is eyeing a late November return. So, like, if he's hoping to resume practicing in 2 to 3 weeks and return towards the end of November, I don't think he's going to be up to full speed until playoffs, basically, which would be irrelevant for your fantasy season. Like, at the most, I think they're going to. It's a broken tibula. This is an intense injury. I don't see any scenario where he is going to come back and take anything but the backup role at this point. Again, just while he gets his health back and going into, the playoffs and then next season. Why would you risk his future like that? Chiefs are a smart organization too. There's just no need. Kareem Hunt is here for on a 1-year deal. You just ride him. Raw Boy has this Jetta's put up 40 today. I hope so, because I got a shit ton of them in best ball. I also have him on my Dynasty League where I'm not sure if Tyreek Hill is going to be available for me, so I could use the 40. Realistically, though, I actually think it could be a really big Aaron Jones game, and I think some of these other wide receivers like Addison and Naylor are going to be leaned on a little bit more. It's like, I do think Justin Jefferson's going to have a good game. Don't hear what I'm not saying, but if you are an NFL coach, like if you're kicking the shit out of the Jaguars and it's the third quarter, you're not putting Justin Jefferson in there at risk, or you shouldn't be anyways. Singletary or Will Dissly in the flex. I mean, sorry, Jerry, I think I'm a minute late answering this question now because the time just locked on that game. But I personally would have gone Singletary, and I would just hope that the game gets out of hand and that the backup running back sees enough touches and scores a touchdown against the Panthers, who, again, number one against. They're the number one matchup for fantasy running backs. They give the most points to the fantasy running back. Travis Kelce or Taysom Hill? I'm going with Travis Kelce. That's like I was saying before. I like the Taysom Hill spot start. I'm not doing it above, the likes of a Travis Kelce, of a Cade Otton, of even an Evan Ingram, who is pretty much going to be, I think, the primary target for Mac Jones. Yeah, with Zay and Smith being my entire wide receiver room, I shouldn't trade both for Nico or CD, right? I feel like that. Yeah, no, you can't. You literally can't do that because you're going to be screwed at wide receiver. What you could do, though, and what I was saying before of like, if they would be willing to accept one of those guys and Jake Ferguson for Nico or CD, or even a different wide receiver that might not be in quite that tier, but the tier right below it, I would be exploring more of those options. And yes, shout out Jerry, threw Singletary in the last second. That's beauty. All right. You know what, guys? I'm gonna wrap it up here a little bit early today because, like I said, I'm still recovering. Like I wasn't even sure if I was gonna be able to physically do this show today. So let's wrap it up. Let's go watch some NFL football in Germany. I'll be back tomorrow to react to all of the fantasy football action that was Week 10. But until the next time, I appreciate you guys. Thank you for stopping in. I'll catch you on the flip side.
He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop that man. Here comes